So the environment that we're going to go through when we do our live videos are going to be a minimalist, just the same as our C video series. We're going to be using the minimalist GNU for Windows, but we're going to be installing G++ this time instead of GCC, and we'll be using the same text editor, so we'll just be using a simple Notepad++ editor.
Yep. And those are all free. Now we're going to take a look at the basic program structure of C++, and you'll probably recognize right away that it looks almost identical to C.
It looks suspiciously like C. We're going to start off first with, instead of including stdio, Brian, we're going to be including Iostream.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Iostream is an object-oriented library that contains functionality for input and output to streams. And streams are a generic concept. A stream could be a file, it could be a device. It just contains the most common instances used for manipulating and using streams.
Right. It was kind of similar to how we have a handle. Well, we still have a handle on this, but it's like when we saw a handle can attach to a file or to a console or to a printer
or to STD in or STD out, right?
So just like in C, we have our main declaration, our main function declaration, and the code block below it.
Yeah, there's nothing. It works exactly like C.
We discussed namespaces before. This std : is a reference to the standard namespace.
So when we say std : cout, what we're saying is go to the namespace std. And then the scope operator, which are the two colons, basically says that the following member or the following entity that I'm about to mention belongs to the previous namespace. So cout is an instance of a class called Ostream. So what I'm saying is go to the std namespace and use the instance of Ostream called cout and then pipe it some information.
So this is similar. The way we described this before is you have a namespace like the universe, and then within the universe you have the galaxy or the Milky Way, and then the solar system. The namespace
and then David Bowie.
And then David Bowie. So this is really just a categorization of objects that are available to you, and classes that are available. So standard is just what cout belongs to, and you'll get familiar with this. Don't worry about it. Now this is the insertion operator. This is a little interesting. So this performs an output operation on a stream. So these are directional. So the arrows point to the left. So we're basically going to take that string to the right of them and pipe it through those arrows out to the object that we're referring to. So whenever we go to write something to the console, like, hey, buddy, we pipe it to cout, which takes it over to the monitor. You can think of it that way.
And this, we're using to concatenate two strings together. And we're going to get into what the other one is here in just 1 second.
But just generally know that these are insertion operators.
So now, what are we doing here? Well, in between the insertion operators, we're sending text. So we're sending, hey, buddy, which we all recognize as a C string or as a string of text being piped or being inserted into cout. We're also sending a end line, which is part of the std namespace. An end line is basically a keyword that represents a new line character. By doing these two insertion operators, we're simply just concatenating these two strings together and piping it to cout.
So it looks suspiciously like C.
It looks very suspiciously like C.
So like we said, this is built on C, so what you're going to see is very similar. Like Kevin had mentioned earlier, some of the compilers don't like the Iostream without the H. Some will force the .h at the end. So if you are using some other one that's complaining.
Just as a side note, the reason why I made a point to mention that is because Brian and I made a C++ video series in 2005 for the original website, and I got so many emails from people saying, when I run your code, it has a problem with Iostream, but if I have .h, it works. So since I got like 50 emails with that complaint, I figured if I just get this out of the way and this time, I won't have to hear that anymore.
You can avoid using namespace all throughout the program. Before, in the other basic program structure example we had like std : cout. You don't always have to designate that namespace. You can say that we're going to use it. So in the top of the program, above the main statement, you can say using namespace standard. So when we do that convention, all the code below it will assume that convention is in use. So we don't have to declare standard : cout or the new line or a lot of other things. We can just use it. So it's a very convenient thing, so you don't have to do std : 5 million times.
And when you use a namespace, it follows the same concept as variable scope, but we have an entire video dedicated to understanding namespaces later. So for now, if you just declare globally in your program like this, it'll prevent you from having to write excess lines of code or excess characters in your code.
It's pretty convenient.
How do we compile our C++ program?
I don't know.
I have absolutely no idea. So what we do What we do is, like before, we were writing C programs. We were calling GCC and the input file and blah. Well, this is the exact same thing, except for instead of GCC, we're going to be calling G++.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
That's it. That's a fast, like grab you by the wrist and run you around the block. Whatever that means. I'm not really sure.